Hey, what up? This video actually takes a kind of moderate and sympathetic view of the question of whether or not Freelee the Banana Girl is a fraud, whether or not she's lying to or misleading the public about her credentials. And it asks in an open-ended way, what is the importance and significance of credentials, whether that's a university education or, in this case, certification as a dietary expert if you're going to make your living selling diet books and giving advice on exercise, weight loss, and so on. If you've been to this channel before, you might or might not be surprised that I state my position on this is actually moderate. It's not extreme. I'm not here to kind of shout that she's a fraud. It's not clear to me that she's been trying to mislead the public, but there is a lot of misleading and confusing information out there. And I want to say I sympathize in a very specific sense. I sympathize because I myself am someone who has confusing credentials. And very often I have to clarify for people. I have to say explicitly, look, I am not fluent in the Chinese language. Here's my background. Here's how much I studied. Here's, I've lived in China. But when I was living in China, I was studying a completely different group of languages. I was doing language research in China, but not on Chinese. Then on the other hand, I have studied Chinese in a university context. It's complicated. I do have some credentials related to First Nations languages, indigenous languages from Canada, such as Cree and Ojibwe. However, I don't have a PhD in that subject. It's very easy for people to mishear or misunderstand something you've said or something you've written, even when it's meant to be very clear. But starting with the interview she gave to the Daily Mail, so the Daily Mail is a major newspaper with a huge number of readers, etc., etc., and I can't blame Freelee for this directly, but it seems that one way or another the journalist was misled. And the journalist says, quote, though Freelee has earned some qualifications in health and nutrition, she says her current diet came mostly from undertaking her own independent research. Quote, it's mainly self-study, mainly my own research, but I have an advanced certificate in nutrition, which is completely irrelevant to how I eat now. I also went to college after graduating high school and studied dietetics, which it's funny, error, there's a grammatical error there in that sentence, because my teacher was actually obese and she was teaching us about nutrition. Close quote. Now, if you read that very carefully, you can sort of guess what credentials she has and what credentials she doesn't have. She says, I went to college, but she does not say that she graduated from college. She does not say she has a college degree or a university degree. And she seems to me to have always evaded the question of what exactly her certificate is in nutrition. Now, I don't know her reasons. We're going to see right now how she answers the direct question. Here is a question she was given on YouTube, and at this moment, 761 people had given it a thumbs up. This person asks, where did you get your nutritional degree, Freelee? Good question. Now, here is her answer. Whew. She couldn't just give you a direct answer, huh? You can see how many words this is already. Quote, how many fat, out-of-shape dietitians and nutritionists are out there? Question mark. They are everywhere! Exclamation point. 99% have no idea what they are talking about because their studies are based on industry-funded propaganda, $signs, and not the truth. A piece of paper means nothing, period. That said, I do have advanced certification in nutrition and attended dietetics college only to pull out due to so much bullshit. Okay, pause. I'm going to pause from this quotation mark. So she did not answer the question. The question was, where did you get your degree or certificate? Now, in the English language and in organized education 21st century, a certificate can mean anything. And again, I sympathize. This is a problem in my own life. I have a university degree in political science. I have a bachelor's degree in political science. An honors BA, as we say in English. Honors BA in political science, which is not a very impressive accomplishment by any means. I also have a certificate in teaching English as a second language if I ever want to work as an English teacher. Now, what does that certificate mean? It could mean everything or it could mean nothing. If you're ever having a job interview in that field, they have to ask you, well, what did you actually do in the certificate? A certificate like that, it could have taken 2 months. It could have taken 2 weeks. It could have been something you ordered over the internet. You didn't legitimately study for it all. There was no testing. There was no scrutiny and no education. But it could also be a really robust program that really provided with a background. So I have been to job interviews where I have to specify not just where I got the certificate, but also have to describe what the education consisted of. Now, for someone in her position, it does seem to me significant that she dodges this question here. And she seems to have been very successful in talking to members of the press, in dodging the question or in presenting the most flattering angle possible on the fact that she is a school dropout. A certificate is not a BA, it's not a degree, it's not a dietetics school. And again, I disagree with her. She says a piece of paper means nothing. A piece of paper can mean a lot. It could be the certificate she claims she has. It could be an excellent program. It could be that if she named where it was from and described the program, which includes, let's say, how many months it is, and did you actually study at that institution, or did you just study at home and make phone calls and send in your homework by email? Was it so-called distance learning, or was it a real program where you wrote exams and used textbooks and attended classes? We don't know. But obviously the fact that she refuses to talk about it makes us think it is not so legitimate. All right, so I continue the quotation here, which is really her justification for her lack of credentials and not really answering the question about what credentials she has. Quote, "Who in their right mind would teach students to serve a chunk of meat and carton of milk to cardiovascular patients post-op? Crazy shit, exclamation point. The very, quote, foods, close quote, that put them in the hospital to start with, exclamation point. Even though I have a conventional, quote, education, close quote, in mainstream nutrition, it's useless, period. My credentials are how I look and feel effortlessly, and the results I help others get with no drugs, no calorie restriction, no killing, close quote." Now, there are quite a few things here you could sort of philosophize about. Here's the isolated example of, well, some people tell somebody with a heart attack to drink milk. Okay, here's another example, Freelee. Some people claim that you shouldn't eat garlic because garlic contains a neurotoxin. That's Freelee the Banana Girl. You claimed that for years. And I think lately that's a rare example of something you stopped saying and stopped writing about. I wonder if you've gone through and deleted all of the mentions of it from your website. I found one the last time I Googled. Your claim that garlic contains a neurotoxin. No, it doesn't. And you didn't learn that in school, and you didn't learn that from a science textbook, and you also didn't learn the type of procedural attitudes to check something like that before you claim it. Now, some of your pseudoscientific claims, Freelee, are cited to sources, but you never learned how to tell the difference between a good source and a bad source. So just now I was looking at your website, Freelee, and your current claims on garlic, where you no longer just say, oh, it contains a neurotoxin, therefore don't eat it. What a great scientific discovery. But instead, you are citing a website which is both non-scientific and non-rational, which is a raw food enthusiast website that makes a completely irrational, poetic argument that people should not eat garlic because garlic is not a food. Now, the line of reasoning here is actually that a true food is something you can eat as a monomeal. The whole line of reasoning there is just farcical. Not every argument needs to be based on science. If we're going to have a debate about the morality of the Vietnam War, science, it may not play a very important role in that. If we're going to have a debate about the morality of veganism, of vivisection, of ecology, of polluting rivers, science could play a very important role, could play a major role if that's your view of the world, or it could be a very minor role, or it might not be scientific at all. However, there are still questions of rationality, of whether or not you're saying something intelligent, reasonable, and useful, even if the criterion for what you're saying is not scientific. And Freelee, I have to say, I disagree with you. I don't think a piece of paper means nothing. I think you are crucially lacking the skills, even when you cite sources, when you cite articles to back up your arguments. My problem is not that you don't cite peer-reviewed scientific research. That's useful for some things and not others. But even given that I'm open-minded about there being more than one type of information relevant to these things, I see you citing information that is, to use a word that's already appeared here, bullshit. And I don't think you yourself, Freelee, are aware of the difference between a reliable and an unreliable source when you make these arguments. I think you're someone who sincerely believed for many years that garlic contained neurotoxins, and you had apparently no way to verify that or check it or to counter what are basically just stupid rumors on the internet within the raw food vegan community and so on. There's a broader philosophical question here of what is the value of a university education, but actually, Freelee the Banana Girl, you are someone who in many ways gives a chilling reminder of just how important it is to have a solid foundation, educationally speaking, in the basics, like how to write a footnote, how to check a footnote, how to see if a source is reliable, and so on. And Freelee mentions here the isolated problem of studies based on industry-funded propaganda. Yes, that is one problem. Yes, when the dairy industry pays for something that makes the dairy industry look good, that is a problem. I can give you another example of a problem. People who don't know what they're talking about spreading the completely unscientific notion that garlic contains a neurotoxin. Discuss. Okay, it wasn't industry propaganda that is the origin of that. The idea that human beings should not eat garlic because garlic cannot be consumed as a monomeal. I don't know. How about parsley? You ever sat down and eat nothing but parsley for a monomeal? Parsley is very good for your health. But no, it's not a monomeal. There are a lot of vegetables where if you eat too much of them, they can cause you problems, either of digestion or of basically overdosing on very healthy vitamins and so on. You know, Brazil nuts. You can eat too many Brazil nuts and get seriously ill. It doesn't mean Brazil nuts are evil. It's just ridiculous. Fundamentally stupid. And Freelee, you've built your career on it. So no, I think Freelee, I think a piece of paper doesn't mean nothing. I think you were asked directly where you got your piece of paper, and you have lied or at least dodged the question. You failed to do what I already described myself doing. People often misunderstand what my credentials are, whether it's because they think I'm fluent in Chinese, or they think I'm fluent in Cree, or they make up something in their own head. I've studied so many languages about Pali, Cambodian, Lao, and I have to sit there and say, look, this is my education, this is the type of research I've done, this is how much I know these different languages. It's not easy to explain, but yeah, it's important to be honest and transparent. You guys like to use the word transparent, and forthcoming, and set the record straight, even when journalists get it wrong. I had an interview with a journalist from Le Monde, a very famous newspaper in France, and the guy quoted me and cited me, and I remember that guy regarded me as if I were famous. He kind of regarded me with stars in his eyes, which I found a bit hilarious, because my life is both rather humble and rather boring. But yeah, it was easy for different newspapers. Several times they've cited me as an expert in Cambodia or an expert in whatever it's convenient for them to say I'm an expert in for that one article. I've been cited. I've had, there was a newspaper in Scandinavia, I forget where, Sweden or Norway. There was an expert there that called me an anthropologist. I have never described myself as an anthropologist. That's what that newspaper journalist said about me. And for a little while I had to tell people, no, actually, I'm not an anthropologist, but some people think that I am. It happens. And Freelee, you are not being transparent or anything else here. Now, there's something else we can philosophize about at some depth. Her claim that my credentials are my body. To quote her directly, quote, my credentials are how I look and feel, close quote. Now, you know, I think there's really a big lesson here for vegans. You can Google any given supermodel. A lot of them have diets. A lot of them are pushing diet books. You're never going to be the best looking person in the world. Good looking people are never going to be hard to find. I'm sorry, but this just opens the door to a madhouse. 99% of good looking people are not vegan. 99.9%. The world is crowded with models and actresses and singers who eat meat or who drink milk or whatever. And a lot of them, when they get asked, why are you so beautiful, talk about their diets. And that's been going on since print media was first invented. You can find interviews from the 1920s with, famous actors and singers and so on talking about, their crazy diet ideas. And it has just never been acceptable to say this guy knows what he's talking about because he's handsome, or this woman knows what she's talking about because she's beautiful. And finally, Freelee, if your credentials are your body, how you look and feel effortlessly, well, then what about the fact that your body is fake? Because you paid a surgeon to cut open your breasts and put saline and plastic inside. And I do not count having fake breasts as how you look and feel effortless. I don't think that's a legit credential. And I think that could be put to anyone who made similar claims. Most of the media I'm exposed to is related to hip-hop, related to rap music and that subculture. And there are a lot of good-looking women in that industry, some of whom, also have a diet book or also have an exercise plan. And they always have to be clear about what plastic surgery they've had. Because if they're giving advice, but the reality is they've had liposuction or fake breasts or augmentation to their bum or other parts of their body, there's a lot of that going on. And no, I don't think it's legit. You guys talk about this stuff yourselves. You don't think it's legit for somebody using steroids to give diet advice and so on. If your body that you claim is your credential, because you have no real credentials, if your body is what you claim gives you credence, gives you authority, then it really is a pretty profound problem that your body is fake. And in fact, your illusion of being simultaneously very skinny and very curvy, the illusion of femininity you're projecting, in fact, that's a product of that evil beauty industry that you rant against. It's that conspiracy of scientists who, designed and carried out breast augmentation surgery. Come on. You won't eat a mango that was raised with pesticides, but you'll pay for a surgeon to put plastic inside a cavity in your chest so you can look curvier than you are. When the reality is, if you didn't have that breast augmentation, you would look scrawny, and you probably would not have those photographs published in that newspaper and wouldn't have all this attention. And really, her whole life would be different without that surgery. And I'm not hating on her. My point is not really to point the finger here. But I've got to say, when I was putting together one of my former videos, I had a digression on the fact that Freelee and Durian Rider do not have the credentials, whereas several other people in the game do. There are medical doctors who talk about vegan diet, health, and exercise. And I was just asking, why would you trust them? Why would you choose to trust these people instead of people who have credentials? And at that time, when I fact-checked it, I found all this conflicting and unclear information, Freelee, about how you have a certificate of some kind, how you studied at university to some extent. The reality is you're a dropout, and you're being dishonest about exactly what your certificate is, where it comes from, and what you learned. And anyone who clicks through to the footnote of your crazy claims, such as, garlic contains a neurotoxin, nobody should eat garlic. There is real reason to regard what you say with scrutiny. And the way your body looks, or if people find you attractive, that is not enough of a credential to do what you've been doing.
And I know y'all niggas hating, can't wait till I'm gone. That's why I keep driving on by, tooting my horn. Dun, 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 dun.